How many of our listeners are in the joy of menopause or perimenopause? Are you listening to us between 1 and 3 a.m. as you're melting with a hot flash?
Friend, we totally get you. Our saving grace is our Cozy Earth bamboo bedding. We truly love their sheets that keep us cooler as we walk through the messy middle of our body changes. These sheets will help you to upgrade your nights and transform your days with Cozy Earth.
We also love the pajamas that keep us cooler through the night and are super cute to wear when you get those treasured, relaxing mornings with your drink of choice. Oh, and the Luxe bath sheets, they are so soft and calming after a good workout, a stressful day of work, or with the kids, or even just having an amazing game of pickleball. A must have to remind yourself that you deserve to celebrate you.
So go to cozyearth.com and use the code It's Your Birthday for an exclusive discount for up to 40% off. We hope that you love Cozy Earth as much as we do.
Today, it's your birthday. Yesterday was too, and so is tomorrow. Not sure what that means? Let us introduce you to this powerful concept and to our community called It's Your Birthday. We are thrilled that you have joined. Who are we? We are Helene and Christina, and we are on a mission to empower, teach, and remind women to celebrate themselves. Combined, we have over 35 years experience as therapists in private practice. It was in the office, as well as in some of our personal relationships, that we've been hearing week after week of women who are struggling and not feeling seen or alive. We call it the messy middle stage of life. If you're curious how we define this, go back to our episode 2 in season 1.
We come to you not as therapists, but rather two women in this life stage with you, your friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or uncomfortable topics in a way to empower you, laugh along the way, as healing is found often in laughter, and we want you to find joy in life. We strive to find the meaning in the middle of the messy or the unknowing. What sets us apart, you might ask? We leave you with gifts each episode. These may come in the form of actionable tools or strategies, invitations to be exactly where you are, and sometimes mic drop thought-provoking ideas.
Now that we are friends, let's go ahead and make this official. We would love you to start your Thursday mornings off with us. So make sure you follow the show wherever you listen and sign up for our free newsletter at our website, yourbirthdaypodcast.com. Ready for some gifts to start living your life the way you want? Take our free quiz on our website and gifts will be dropped into your inbox immediately.
Today, we are going to explore the transformative power of heartbreak, how it shapes us, and the unexpected gifts that come from deep emotional pain. Often, when we hear of heartbreaks, our brains go exactly to a loss or a hurt from an intimate relationship. And this may have come up for you. For others, it may come in the form of a loss of a job, an unexpected move, the death of a close friend or pet, or even from your body changing. Christina and I are here today to chat how all of these events can lead to heartache and healing. Grab your drink of choice, and today, somewhere around here, I have a peppermint mocha, and let's explore what gifts can be on the other side of heartbreak.
Oof. This is
You
hard.
do that a lot. You either go yay or you go oomph, and today you went oomph.
I know this one's a hard one, right? Like we can biologically see change in people from heartache. Like their chemistry changes in
And you
their
know what? When
body.
you say that, I even think you often can see changes in how they carry themselves, like physical changes too.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right, it is an oomph.
it
It's
is
an
an
oomph.
oomph.
All right, I'm with
I
you.
think that, some of these wrinkles here came from heartache. Let's be real. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I think our mind like instantly jumps when we think of heartache to romance, right? To like
Mhm.
that teenage crush or the boy that you fell in love with before this one or the girl you fell in love with before this one. Or, some people it might be that you were with the wrong gender or
Yeah.
you were with the completely wrong type of person,
Yeah.
But the reality is heartache and heartbreak is not just romantic.
When we were thinking about this episode, and immediately I went to that too, but I said, wait a minute, there's so much more of heartache that comes from heartbreak that doesn't have to do with a romantic relationship. And what came up for me is I remember now we've shared throughout these episodes, like I lost my mother 2 weeks before my daughter was born. And I
Mhm.
lost my grandfather, who was just a pivotal of an amazing man in our family. And those two losses were incredibly brutal. And I do remember saying to my husband, and I think because I had another like 20 years with my grandmother, and there was just this incredible connection that her and I had, that when she goes, it's going to be a different level of pain. And it was like my heart, it just, I'm gonna cry. It's
Yeah.
still. And, the anniversary of her passing just passed.
Mhm.
And it definitely was a physical, emotional, and probably wrinkle creating sense of
Yeah.
heartbreak. And I think in talking about that as we go through today's episode and we talk about some of the gifts that can come with it, she's going to sprinkle back in good ways. But that was an oomph. And you?
Can you imagine what it was like for grandma too, like losing her life partner?
Uh,
Your grandpa died. I mean, I think of that often, or
mm,
like, my parents, when my mom passed away, my parents were both second marriage, but still they had been together. Like, what was it? Close to 40 years?
right, a lifetime of a
Yeah.
lot of people. Yeah.
And so, like, I still remember, like, desperately wanting my dad to just stay in Florida
Mm.
and stay close to me. And like, I didn't want to let him go. Like, I think if he had said, I'll move in, I would have been like, great. And if you guys have listened to any past episodes, like, he and I can be a little bit of oil and vinegar, sandpaper. I don't know what you want to say, but we can rub each other wrong. And so the fact that, like, I was so desperate for him to stay, and he was so desperate to get the fuck out of Florida. Like,
Mm.
he got in his car and
Wow.
drove all the way to Minnesota. I don't think the guy stopped. And he was
And
like,
look at the
just
differences of how you both
get there.
experience that oomph.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
I just like, and he couldn't wait to get out of town. And I was like, I need you. And he didn't have the bandwidth, which was fine. I had so much other support. I don't want him to
yeah.
ever carry that grief or that, that he was responsible for my grief. But we responded so differently. So different.
Right. And you started this by saying like heartbreak can cause like physical, emotional, psychological. And you said that question like when my grandfather passed. And my grandmother, just as you know, Grandma Jean, she loved life and she loved life even bigger at different moments. She never came home from a bagel shop without like meeting a friend.
Oh,
And after he passed and after when my mom passed, she just cocooned herself for about 2 weeks. And I said, Grandma, like you would always say yes. Like, you want to go play tennis? Yes. You want to meet for coffee? Yes. You want to do this? Yes. She loved life. She loved people. And finally, I said to her, Grandma, you're not doing anything. And she's like, I just don't know how to anymore. I feel like I've been saying no as she was helping both of them towards their endings. And that's where that concept of practice came up for me. I said, Grandma, what if you just practice saying yeah. So like when your heart aches and you want to move a little bit forward, you can slowly practice with a whole sense of forgiveness. Like if you show up with girlfriends and you're like, I love you all, but this is so hard. I'm not in the place to be here. Thank you for inviting me. You can leave. But it's just practicing getting over that heartache stage. Yeah,
oh,
I
I'll
know.
never forget. Ethan's aunt was staying with us after she lost her husband, and it was around the holidays. And one of the things that she was looking forward to, I mean, he'd been sick for so long that she couldn't travel much, she couldn't be far away. And so we got her new luggage.
Mm.
And I was so excited to give her it. And I was so excited that she was with us. And I went up Christmas Day morning and like I couldn't have been more happy that she was there. And I found her on her bed in a ball of tears. And I just remember, like, my heart breaks now too, because her husband was just the sweetest British.
Mm.
And I will never forget Uncle Marcy's just his laughter. Like, he just had the cutest chuckle and the sweetest British accent. Anyway, but I just remember going and sitting on the bed with her and wrapping her in my arms and just crying with her.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to me, like, that's the gift I needed, was somebody just to cry with me. And I think if you are somebody who's watching somebody go through heartbreak this season
Mm.
and you're one of their confidants, you're one of their supports, and you're struggling with what to say to them or what to do, sometimes it's nothing.
Right.
Sometimes it's just holding them.
And you don't need to know. You can also just ask them because if someone you love or someone who's in your circle is going through heartbreak and thus heartache, they may not even know what they need. And something just happened to them that maybe they didn't expect to happen, even if it was expected. So even just asking them, I see you hurting. Is there something I can do? Giving them that choice to
Mm-hmm.
check in with themselves and say out loud is a huge gift.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And I think there can be heartbreak even within relationships that stay together too.
Oh, absolutely.
Heartbreak isn't just
Mhm.
like a boyfriend you broke up with, or a husband, or a spouse, or a partner that you broke up with. It can be within a relationship
Right. You
too,
can be in a long-term healthy relationship and one of the partners may be going through like an unexpected depressive episode
or an addiction,
or
or an affair, or I
yeah.
mean, there's lots of things that can happen,
Mhm.
or your partner lost their job, or they're having a career change, or you're weathering a major storm together, or you're in a financial storm together, or whatever. I mean, heartbreak can come in all different packages.
That's a yeah, that's a great thing. So I'm sure that would resonate with some people. I mean, our audience is growing, so I think we're touching on points of stuff with everyone, but that's a really important thing that when we talk about like heartbreak, we think about an intact relationship and it can be intact and there still can be heartbreak within it. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. I mean, I think walking through patients that have chosen to stay in a marriage after an affair and the incredible heartbreak or the heartbreak of addiction. I think the hard thing is, we hear so many like common phrases like time heals all wounds, or, heartbreak only happens in romantic relationships. And I'm here to call bullshit on all that.
Right, you can blow all those things up if they're not resonating with you.
Yeah. And even the stuff that we say, if stuff that we say just doesn't fit with you, then throw it in the garbage can and move on and listen to a different episode. But yeah, so when I was trying to think of like a heartache for me or a heartbreak for me, like my first one went to like a guy I was dating in college who there was a million reasons why it wouldn't have worked. And then I remember like there was points that I was more serious and there was points that he was more serious. And then I had decided I was going to go on to grad school.
Mhm.
And I remember like realizing like I wanted grad school. I wanted to move on with my life. I wasn't ready for like that commitment.
Right.
He was at a stage in his life that he needed that commitment. And so like I ended it. And I think my heart broke more than his.
And
Like,
I find that surprises people when they're the one who either ends a relationship or ends a marriage, the level of grief that they go through, even if they've been grieving the loss of relationship for a year or two already, when they put
yeah,
forward that
no.
cut in it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I
Mm.
it took me a solid year to like get over it. I can't tell you how many nights like I cried myself to sleep and like played the what if games, or if only, or maybe I should change my mind, or I know I knew then I was making the right decision for me. I definitely know now. There's a Garth Brooks song, and I don't know. I love Garth Brooks. I'm just going to tell you that. Uh, Ever since my high school days, love Garth Brooks. And one of the songs that he does is Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. And
Mhm.
I often think like the boys that I wanted to marry in high school, the boys that I wanted to marry in college, thank God I did not end up with any of them. Like, thank God I ended up with who I did because it was such a better story
It
for
was your story, the way it was supposed to end, but you
me.
had to go through all of those to
Yeah.
get to your ending. Yeah.
And here's what I also say, like, if your heartbreak is a romantic relationship, I love to talk with people about, especially if it's a dating or it was a marriage or something like that. We try people on. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they are forever fit. And sometimes we try people on to learn what we like and don't like, especially in dating, right?
Oh, yes.
So, pretty much all except one of the guys I dated, I would totally set up with a friend because they were really good guys. They just weren't
Hmm.
me,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, like, but I learned about myself. I learned what I liked. I learned what I didn't like. Like, oh, yeah, these characteristics of this person loved, those characteristics that didn't work for me,
Right.
And then it
Yeah.
kept making me like add to my list of like, yep, like this, like this, like this, like this. So that when I met Ethan, like we were a couple months in and I pulled out my list and I was
Ah,
like, oh my gosh, she has everything on my list. Everything. Like everything. It was so weird. But yes.
and so necessary. And that's what I think we
Yeah.
want to like. I love that you told that story because that leads us right into like the unexpected gifts of heartbreak. And one of them can be an
Yes.
amazing husband.
And you know what? It's growth because I would learn so much about myself of what I didn't
Each
like.
and every time.
Yeah. Or I even step back to the grief of my mom and the heartache there and what I learned about myself. I learned that when I grieve, I need equal parts of isolation and community. I can't do one or the other.
Mm.
I learned that my dad needed isolation. Like he told me he got in his car and he hard, bald, ugly cried. He's probably going to be really mad that I outed that because he doesn't cry.
But I want to thank him because he just gave a gift to our men in our audience or
Right.
to, the women who like encourage their sons. Like they do cry.
They do. They
They
do.
do.
And that was something I had on my list was a man
Yeah.
who cried.
Mm.
Like I needed to know that I was going to be with somebody who wasn't afraid of his feelings,
Okay.
you know? So heartache can often lead to growth.
Yeah.
It's hard growth, but it's growth.
Yeah.
We evolve. We aren't stagnant. And
Yeah.
we have an opportunity to learn. I often tell people when they're divorcing, this is your time to learn about you and heal the part of you that attracted you to that person for so long. You know, the unhealthy parts that attracted you,
Right.
there's healthy parts, but the unhealthy parts that did, so that we can find somebody different and better next time.
Right. So when those people go that stage, then they need to go back and listen to our episode about dating yourself. Like it's healing and then dating. So once either you've done forgiveness or you've learned those parts or you've done the healing, then you can invite laughter and joy. And that's the part of also with heartache, heartbreak, you get some self discovery because I think when you go through some of those things, like you were just talking about, at the other side of it, like you have to go through it. You want to talk about like you have to go through the heavy and the hard to get the other side. And then the other side is growth, and it could also be self discovery. Like you can get either realigned or learn what are some different things that you desire in life. Like get reacquainted with maybe your values that for whatever reason, maybe you weren't as in touch with or they weren't as important at that stage. It's a beautiful time to re-explore and get reconnected to parts of you that are really important.
100%. And that's what it's about. Like sometimes your heart has to break for you to heal.
Say that again.
Sometimes your heart has to break for you to heal.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to hit our bottom point to be able to say, okay, I'm done running from it. I need to heal. I'm done avoiding it. I need to heal.
Yeah.
Maybe that heartbreak for you is the form of an addiction or an unhealthy habit or an unhealthy behavior, and you've broken your own heart.
Mm. Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity for growth, for healing, for forgiving yourself. And if you haven't gone back to that episode in season 1, gosh, get there, friends.
That was a big one. Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
And resilience, like saying time heals all wounds is not true. However, I will say with time, you can work through and you can process and you can have your growth. It doesn't happen instantaneously.
Right. Nor do we want it to, even though we go back to that clip that we've said before. Like people want that fast pass. But when you do, you don't get to this, you'll never truly know what your full growth is
Mm-mm.
or that self-discovery because you've just pushed through it. You have to sit in the muck with oomph as we started this, even though it's heavy and hard.
How many divorced people do we see
Oh,
fast pass, and what do they end up doing?
dating immediately.
And
Yeah,
marrying the same toxicity, just repeated fucking history.
right.
I mean, I see it. Like they're like, oh, this is the love of my life. And I'm like, this is
Oh,
your
I've
ex.
heard of him or she before. Like they sound very familiar.
This is your ex, just in a different package.
Hmm.
Yeah. We see it way too often if you do not allow yourself time to work through and process your heartbreak. Absolutely.
Right.
And same with grief. Like if you are in a moment of grief, of having a loss, and you jump into a romance when you were in a really unhealthy, difficult storm of life, you likely are not going to attract a healthy person.
Right. It's almost like you're attracting someone because this part is so uncomfortable. You're asking them indirectly to
Mm-hmm.
help soothe or regulate that really strong discomfort.
Yeah.
And friends, we know you can do it yourself because we're preparing you that when you
Right.
have heavy and hard, that you have our community, you have parts within yourself that you're learning and discovering. But when it gets too hard, you may closely attract someone else because you just want that pain to go away. And that we understand. And it may not be the right time. And that's
No.
okay. You have to wait to get to the healing.
So the other gift, growth being the first, the second one is that self-discovery.
Mhm.
When you've hit heartbreak, figure out what you truly need, value, and desire in life.
That's the recipe for it's your birthday. Yes, say those again.
It's the recipe for heartbreak too. Like
Yes.
that is that's the matzo ball soup of heartbreak, right? So for those of you who are not Jewish, matzo ball soup is like the heal all for every illness.
Everything.
Everything, matzo ball soup. You want to ask me what's in my freezer right now? Matzo ball soup. And so the matzo ball soup of heartbreak is totally self-discovery. And
I'm laughing with you because I think it's adorable.
it's true though, is it not?
It is. It is.
It is. So the matzo ball soup of heartbreak is self-discovery, which
I
is
love
all
it.
about uncovering what you truly need, value, and desire. 110%. So take that time to sit with yourself in the pot of chicken broth. And so, what do you need? What do you value? What do you desire? It goes back to my friend Sarah. When I lost her, I really valued how she created such intentional bonds with people and would tell people what she loved about them and like genuinely loved on them and made them feel like they really mattered. And so I walked away of like, I want to carry that value of her. Grandma Jean gave us a million things in life that we can carry on with us that are gifts.
Yeah.
You know, a relationship, leaving a relationship. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn that you needed that you weren't getting, no matter what you did?
And now that you're not in that, and even though there's heartache, you can say it out loud. Like maybe it had been a whisper, maybe it had been something you had muzzled, maybe it was something that you knew, but you had to step out of it and step through it to be able to give it a voice for what you want next.
Right. And what do you value? What matters to you
Yeah.
in that moment of pure, raw pain? And I think of it as like a raw wound. Um, what do you value?
And I think a lot about like heartbreak with some of those things that you're talking about and teaching us that we need to get realigned with our values and what's important to us and what we desire, that there could be a lot of like transformation in the perspective of how we say things. Like, because when you get realigned after the heartache from a heartbreak, and you look at like, what do you need? What do you value? And
Mhm.
you reminded us to really be in touch with what we desire. Some of your priorities may shift, or those things that you're looking for may shift. And that's a great thing, even if it's hard. Like maybe you're realigning with different relationships now.
Yeah.
Maybe you're prioritizing how you're doing your career.
Hmm.
Maybe you're prioritizing your self worth, and maybe that's having hard and necessary conversations with people in your life, with a boss, with a coworker.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And you're figuring out what matters to you, which is huge, huge. And the third real big gift of heartbreak is emotional intelligence.
It can deepen our empathy and our compassion. I think about, I know I told this story one time when I was at Ulta with my daughter, and I heard this woman on the phone, and clearly she had just lost someone, and she was just in the midst of of a heartache. I mean, it was brutal. And it was from a death of someone. And I wasn't like overly listening, but you could just see it. And I
Mm.
think because I had had my own heartbreaks through some incredible losses, that before we left the store, I did say something to her. Like, she was like, this just sucks. It just sucks. And I said, I just whispered quietly, I'm like, it fucking sucks. And it won't last forever. And I don't know if I hadn't gone through, not the same, but maybe something similar, would I have had the empathy? Because I got in connection of something that was really hard for me, that I could see her and
Yeah.
let her know that she is seen and it is real.
Right. Or the courage to go say that to her.
Right. I don't think I would have done that. But when I saw that rawness, and I knew at that moment I needed that. And there's a story from, it's a funny story, but it's also kind of like, it's beautiful, and it's kind of makes we were talking about it. We just drove like 6 hours. And when my mother passed, it's a funny story. Um, so we we had like a receiving line, which you don't typically do in like Jewish, but we did. And so here I am, 9.5 months pregnant, and my heart was breaking. Like my child was not going to meet his grandmother. I was going to bury my mother. And I have an incredible friend, and she was standing there with me. And I don't know, I guess it's the brown Jewish, like brown hair, Jewish looking from Long Island. And a woman just like grabbed her shoulders and was just like, your mother was just amazing. Oh, I know. We all loved your mom, and she had so much strength. And she just, if you're Jewish, like she just kept kafelling. Like
I
there was hundreds and hundreds of people at my mother's funeral. And I'm standing right next to her, 9.5 months pregnant, and she's like 105 pounds wet. But she had lost her mother. And I think in that moment, she just like didn't flinch and just held this
with
woman
it.
back and just hugged her and said, thank you for being here. And I know my mom was so grateful for you. And she had such empathy for what I was going through. Like, I didn't have the capacity to say, it's actually me. Like, but because she
She
had
just went
gone
with
through,
it.
she just went with it. And it's a
A true
hysterical
friend.
story, but it's an amazing story of friendship when your friend who also has lost their mother at a very young age
God, I
can
love that story.
can do that for you. I know we were talking about her this weekend, and
That is
you
the
know,
best friend right there, friends.
that's an
That's the
amazing
best
friend.
friend.
I told you it was morbid and beautiful. So we had that great episode about the power of and. That's a power of and. But because she had gone through heartache and heartbreak,
She understood and she just went with it.
she just
Oh
hugged
my
and loved
gosh.
on this woman. And
We should have had her on our show for the gift of flexibility.
yeah, the gifts of friendship. Like I think like she will be a friend forever. So
100%. She grieved your mom for you.
yeah.
What a hoot. Oh,
Eileen,
that's
if you're
awesome.
listening, I adore you and love you forever. And you definitely my
Mm.
mom. And the idea of having phone dates came from my mom, which we've talked about in other episodes, because I was on the phone with Eileen for about 2, 3 hours. And I told my mom, I'm like, whenever we finally catch each other, we're on the phone forever. And she's like, you just have your phone dates. And that's how phone dates
Oh,
came from heartache and heartbreak from my mom. So it's all
oh,
full
I love
circle.
it.
There's gifts in pain. You just have to be willing to find them and wait for them.
And you know what? That just segments us perfectly to talk about how heartbreak transforms our perspective, right? Like it transformed Eileen's perspective to be able to just embrace this woman
Yeah.
and carry that for you in that moment without even missing a beat.
None.
And,
Yeah.
I definitely believe it changes our view on love, life, and ourselves. It's so interesting. My mom would always cry, particularly in church and particularly singing hymns. And as a kid, I was so flippin' annoyed. I was like, can you not cry? Can you just not? Like, this is embarrassing. I mean, it wasn't like booger streaming crying. But it was like eyes would fill and she would, rub and dot, rub and dot. And I was like, please don't. And losing my mom and losing one of my closest friends, I am that girl that cries at music. I am that girl that cries in
Mm.
church. I am that girl that cries with hymns. Like, thanks, mom. I don't know what happened when you passed away, but you sprinkled that dust on me. And
She
I can
helped you
get,
get more in touch or to allow yourself or
yes,
something. She had an impact. That's an Eileen moment, right?
yes,
Like,
totally. It totally is.
yeah.
And so, Carol passed it on to me. And now I'm the one who has, like, when people cry, I cry with them. Even in my office, if my patient's eyes well up with tears, 90% of the time, my eyes will well up with tears and compassion for them. And I can't help it. I can't control it. It just happens. So it transformed my perspective that crying's okay. And now Svea's like, Mom, tears away. I'm like, I can't help it. Yes. So it happens to all of us.
It does.
But it helps us. And I think it helps us to show people more grace and compassion. Like, if you haven't
Yeah.
had true heartbreak, you don't have the ability to be compassionate for others. I just don't believe you can.
Well, you can't fully connect.
Mm-mm.
You can have sympathy, but I don't know if you can have the empathy because you can't
Right.
connect with that heart within yourself to then
Yeah.
connect with them. And not that we want everyone to go through heartbreak and heartache to have it, but if you haven't and you're not connecting in a way that you want to, it might be because maybe either you're holding back or you haven't experienced something the same way.
I don't believe anybody can get through life without heartbreak.
Right.
I don't believe you can because we're all flawed humans.
Nor do I think because it's beautiful. Like, look at the beautiful things that we're talking about
Right.
through
The
heartache
things
and
that come out
heartbreak.
of it are gorgeous.
Right.
Like, I'm such a better person for having experienced it. Oh my God, it sucked. It hurt. I fucking hated it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm a much better person now having gone through it.
And
Right.
I could never be the psychologist I am without it. Never, never could I have the compassion and empathy for people that I have.
And I think right now we're just summarizing and really telling you
Mhm.
if you experience unexpected or expected heartbreak, do not do all the things that maybe immediately your body wants you to do, like
Right.
detach from it, stuff it away, shove it away, don't think about it. Like go through it because at the end of it is so much beauty, is so much growth. You haven't met the woman that you're going to be after it, and please let her have that opportunity to be experienced. I mean,
Yes.
Christine and I just shared some really powerful experiences that we had through horrendous heartache and heart pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it can be life altering in the best of ways.
Yeah,
In the best of ways.
in the best of ways. Yeah. So let's fuel them up with some practical steps and strategies. We've talked about gifts, we've talked about things that can happen in different perspectives. I think it's time for some steps and strategies.
Well, we know with heartbreak comes naturally the stages of grief that Kubler-Ross gives us that
Can
we've
you
talked
remind them
about
of those?
before.
I'm
Oh
gonna let
gosh,
you do
off the
those.
top of my head. Oh sugar. I don't know them in exact order. Always tell people that they never experience them in the same order. So
Okay.
yes, shock, denial, anger,
Depression.
bargaining, depression, and then acceptance.
Mm. And it can jump around. And just like Christina said, even though there's the different stages, it's not a full line. You can go through
No.
anger, and then all of a sudden, like the anniversary of like when it was supposed to be your wedding date.
Yeah.
So you can go back to the shock. That's what I mean. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it can jump around.
And really practice genuine self-care. But I self-care is not just a bubble bath, friends. Self-care is so much more. It's journaling, it's exercise. Some days it's getting up and showering because your grief is so heavy and burdensome. There's a child's book that I love to read called Tear Soup, and in
Mm,
it grandma takes her big pot out and she brings it down and she stirs it some. Sometimes she adds ingredients, and that's her tear soup, and she's crying into it. Other
mm.
days, it's just simmering on the stove. And some days, it's sitting up on the shelf, right? And so, like, that was her way of healing. Like, your grandma just shut herself down for 2 weeks and said, I can't be a part of the world. Like, she needed her time to have her tear soup. My
Yes.
dad hopped in the car and ran away.
That was his tear soup.
That was his self care.
Mm.
That was what he needed. Sometimes it's in the form of journaling. Sometimes it's in the form of exercising. Um I have a little quote that my sister-in-law gave me that says a walk can cure almost anything.
Mm.
And I love that because when I can just go for a walk and clear my brain, sometimes that can help me figure out the next step in my heartbreak. Creativity. How many beautiful pieces of art have come out of heartbreak and heartache?
Right. Music, art,
Oh,
stories.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All of Taylor Swift's songs are out of heartbreak. Let's get real. But yes,
Movies. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it may be forgiveness. And do you know that you can even forgive people who have passed away? You can.
Mhm.
Are you able to have the conversation with them? No.
In
But
person, but you could do like an empty chair,
right.
like
Right.
pull them up next to you. If that doesn't feel too woo or uncomfortable, but if it's been brewing in you, it may need to have that voice, and you can pull him or her in
Mhm.
front of you in an empty chair and write a letter or just have that conversation.
Yeah. And friends, heartbreak does not mean the end. It doesn't
Mm.
mean it's over. It's a season. It isn't the end. And it can be, as you've done your healing work, an opportunity for a fresh start. So, whether your heartbreak is a job that you've been laid off at,
a romantic loss, the grief of somebody, whatever it is, it's a fresh start. We're evolving. We're not stagnant. And so a lot of times it can give us a clear sense of purpose or a new direction in life.
And I think the greatest gift you're leaving them with is that that you can choose to look at heartbreak as also a springboard to a new beginning,
Yep.
to a next
Doing
chapter.
it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much of an oomph. We had some giggles. We had matzo ball. We had a body double of my good friend. So
yeah.
it was an oomph and a joy space.
Yes.
Well, not a total bottle. I mean, again, she was
We
100.
can
I was 90
find,
months pregnant.
you know, that's the cool thing about having therapists as friends, right? We can find joy in some tough shit. That's for sure. We're pretty good at that and finding humor in tough shit because we have to as part of our own work of healing and keeping boundaries with everybody's stuff. So, yes. So, friends, we just hope that you will turn heartbreak into an opportunity for new goals in life. Genuinely, we want you to see it as an opportunity for a clear sense of purpose or new direction in life.
And if you know someone who may be experiencing this also, we hope you will share this episode with them as soon as we're done and just let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know this one has sprinkles of laughter and it gives another perspective to heartache. And I was just thinking about you.
Love that. Yes, sharing is caring.
Christina and I would be so grateful if you left us a positive review wherever you listen to us. Hang out with us in between Thursdays on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next Thursday, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, friends.